In the early 20th century, the writer G.K. Chesterton proposed a simple thought experiment. Imagine a road with a fence built straight across it. A modern reformer walks up, looks at the barrier, and says, "I don't see the use of this. Let's clear it away." Chesterton argued that an intelligent thinker would respond differently. They would say, "If you don't see the use of it, I certainly won't let you clear it away. Go away and think. Then, when you can tell me its use, I may allow you to destroy it." This is the principle of Chesterton's fence. Systems, laws, and regulations rarely appear out of nowhere. They are built to solve specific problems. We idolize the confident rule breaker, the lone maverick cutting through red tape. At the same time, we mock the careful, credentialed specialist buried in paperwork. But in 2026, the military briefly tested what happens when you cut the red tape. They paused a strict routine vaccination program for new recruits. To an outside observer, lining healthy young people up for a shot might have looked like a pointless bureaucratic imposition. It was nothing more than an outdated checklist. To understand the cost of throwing away that checklist, we must look back at the bodies that originally forced the Army to write it down. In the fall of 1918, perfectly healthy young men began dying rapidly in their bunks at military training camps across the country. Seasonal influenza usually preys on the softest targets in a population, the very old and the very young. This chart reveals exactly how the 1918 strain broke the normal pattern. The solid line shows a massive spike right in the middle of the graph. The virus specifically targeted people aged 15 to 34, killing the strongest demographics in the prime of life. For the military, an outbreak like this meant entire units could be hollowed out before deploying. The clinical progression was brutally fast. A recruit could be fine at breakfast, develop a severe dark blue cyanosis by nightfall, and drown in their own lungs by morning. Camps filled their infirmaries, then they filled their morgues, and then they simply ran out of room as the infected poured in. When you look at the total casualties for American forces in World War I, shown in this diagram, the impact is staggering. More than 63,000 soldiers died of disease, easily exceeding the 53,000 who were killed in actual combat. The sheer volume of those bodies forced the military to stop viewing the flu as a random act of nature and start treating it as a failure of logistics. Following the war, the military turned influenza into a massive research problem, investing heavily in routine surveillance and virology. By 1945, that effort paid off. Researchers developed the first inactivated flu vaccine, which was tested directly on military personnel. Public health departments adopted similar protocols to protect the civilian population, leaving a visual record of aggressive anti-spitting campaigns, mandatory masking, and strict closures. These interventions might seem tedious or overly cautious today, but they are society's hard-earned wisdom, written in blood. For 70 years, that military vaccination protocol held. It worked so seamlessly that the catastrophe it prevented passed completely out of living memory. This creates a dangerous paradox. When a preventative system functions flawlessly, the threat it stops remains entirely invisible. And once the disaster disappears, the prevention measure itself begins to look like the only problem in the room. It just feels like pointless bureaucracy. We start tearing down the fences protecting us, simply because we've forgotten the danger they were built to hold back. When the military paused the recruit vaccination protocol in 2026, the virus immediately found its way back in. Within weeks, hundreds of recruits were infected. The basic training environment, dense, stressful, and physically demanding, hadn't changed in over a century, providing the perfect conditions for an outbreak. We essentially reran an experiment that our great-grandfathers had already paid for in lives. The virus hadn't forgotten how to exploit a crowded barracks. We had. In biology, immune memory is the information an infection leaves behind. The body holds onto it so that the next time the threat appears, the defenses react instantly. Human institutions work the same way. The civil service, the emergency room, the military health protocol, they are the immune memory of past disasters. True competence requires specialists answering to a standard that outlives them. Their entire job is to keep the failure modes so quiet that the rest of us never even realize what was avoided. The answer to tedious red tape isn't to blindly burn the system down. It is to recognize that every boring, invisible fence was erected to protect us from a nightmare we've been lucky enough to forget.